I want to start stacking, but I don't know where to start or what to buy. It's all so confusing. Well, I'll tell you this, I would not start out with 1 kilo bars, and there's a good reason for that. And in today's video, I'm going to share with you 3 types of silver that if I were a new stacker today, but have the knowledge that I do and the experience that I do, I would start with, and 3 types of silver I would avoid as a new stacker. And like I'd said, Kilobars is certainly not one of the things I'd start with. But generic silver, like these 1-ounce buffaloes right here, or even 5 and 10-ounce silver bars, would be something I would definitely want to start with, especially in today's market with very low premiums. Now, yes, I do understand that I just said I wouldn't buy kilos, and that's because in my opinion, kilos are too big, too heavy, and too hard to sell on your own. You basically are forced to sell these to coin shops. And with kilos especially, you lose a lot of premium. There's probably not a single coin shop in the entire world right now that would even pay spot price for a 1 kilo silver bar. And while that may also be true for 1-ounce rounds, because you can get 1-ounce rounds really cheap as well, they pay a lot more back for big bars like kilos. And that's just because they're harder to move. There's less people out there that can buy $1,000 or more worth of silver at once. And so they pay less for them so they can sit on them longer. So 1-ounce rounds, 5-ounce bars, and 10-ounce bars are the way to go. Now, what's really great is in this market, the premiums have dropped so far that if you shop around, you can find a lot of spot deals where you can actually buy these for basically spot. And even as a new stacker, so if you're a brand new stacker, you can even take advantage of the spot deals that pretty much all online bullion dealers have. Even my channel sponsor, SD Bullion, has a 5 ounces of silver at spot deal that you can get right now by going to sdbullion.com/new. They allow you to buy a 5-ounce silver bar at spot. The only catch, and that's with all of them, not just SDs, is that it does cost to ship unless you spend $200 at once. So if you go to a bullion dealer like SD Bullions and take advantage of one of their spot deals and it doesn't get you to $200, it might be worth buying another round or 2 just to get to that free shipping threshold, because it doesn't make sense to pay a bunch of shipping, especially in this market. Now, another thing I would avoid if I were starting out as a brand new stacker is stuff like this. These are high premium collectible silver pieces. And don't get me wrong, they are really cool and I do love collecting them, but I do so as somebody who has been stacking for a very long time and I just want to have a little bit fun and get some really cool stuff in my stack. That being said, as a brand new stacker, when you're just starting out, when you're buying stuff like this, all you're really doing is throwing extra money away. That extra money you spend on paying the high premiums for things like this could just be spent on more silver. And if I were a brand new stacker, if I were just starting out, I would want to get as much silver as I can get in my stack for the money I have to spend on it. And unfortunately, things like this are the opposite of doing that. So later down the line, when I want to start collecting, I would then start to look at stuff like this. But at first, I would avoid it and get as much silver as I can get. And a good way to do that is 90% silver. Now look, I know that I just said that I would avoid kilo bars because selling them back to coin shops means you're going to get a pretty big chunk back of spot. And that does apply for 90% silver as well today. But the difference is that 90% silver can be bought in very small quantities, and also the premiums on 90% silver are so low that if you are looking to stack fractional silver, you can get a very little amount of silver in a dime or a quarter, and there's 0.715 ounces even in a full dollar, which is less than an ounce. This is a really good way to do it. And the other thing I love about 90% is while some people don't like it, it's actually not being made anymore. All the 90% silver, all the dimes, quarters, and half dollars, 1964 and older, that have ever been made are being melted right now. And actually, there is going to be less of this in the future than more. So 90% silver, in my opinion, especially with premium so low on it right now, is not a bad way to go. Now, one thing I would tell you when you're going to shop for 90% silver is look out for specials. You can find them. There are specials all over the place happening all the time on 90% silver where you can get it at spot or even back of spot if you find the right deal. A friend of mine who owns Minot Coin and Bullion, he just sold a bunch of 90% silver as a special not long ago for like $1 back of spot. In other words, people were paying less than the silver price to get their 90% silver. So if you can find really good deals, 90% silver, in my opinion, is something I would pick up as a new stacker. But one thing I would not pay more for as a new stacker is slabbed silver bullion. It just doesn't make sense. Now, don't get me wrong. Slabs have a place. For example, I have the 1798 large eagle silver dollar right here. I would never want this outside of a slab. But for common modern bullion, it really doesn't make sense to pay more for it. And what's worse is when you go to sell these, whether it be to a coin shop or even to another person on your own, you are likely not going to get more for that plastic. You're not going to get more for the slab. MS69s especially, they're all going to be 69s or 70s for the most part. You're not going to get more for it. So why should you pay more? It doesn't make sense. So as a new stacker, and honestly, for the most part, as a seasoned stacker, I would really avoid paying more for modern slabbed bullion unless you're doing so for a collection. But that does not mean I would outright avoid Silver Eagles. I actually like Silver Eagles, and I have said this on the channel many times. These are a coin that is produced by the US government. They are recognizable around the world. It's actually the most popular bullion coin in the entire world. Now, Silver Eagles, there is a point to where I will not buy them. If the premiums get too high, like they were in 2023, when people were paying $20 an ounce over spot for these, I would not buy them. And for years, I did not recommend Silver Eagles. But as the premiums get lower, which they have been, when you can find these for less than $4 an ounce over spot, I think they're a really good buy. Now, I know that's contradictory to what I said earlier about getting the most silver that you can for your money, but I think the benefits of a Silver Eagle and the recognizability and the love for eagles, especially in the US, and the ease of moving them definitely makes them worth it. And keep in mind, you cannot get these from the US Mint, like a bullion dealer or an authorized distributor. The really big bullion dealers that can buy 25,000 ounces at once, they themselves even have to pay $3.05 an ounce over spot just to get them from the US Mint, and that's before they sell them to coin shops and to me and you. So because of that, $4 an ounce over spot or less, I think is a really good number for Silver Eagles. And to be honest with you, most bullion dealers will pay more for Silver Eagles when you sell them, unlike silver rounds right now, which are actually getting a little bit less than spot when you go back to sell them. So I think Silver Eagles at 4 over or less is a really good buy. Now, I know I only said 3 of each, but there is one more type of silver that I would absolutely avoid as a new stacker, and that is poured silver. Now, don't get me wrong, I love collecting poured silver. I like the way it feels. I like the way it looks. But there is a big issue with poured silver that a lot of people tend to ignore, and that's when you go to sell it, the person you're selling it to may not have the same faith in the validity of it being pure 999 as say you did when you bought it from the person you did. So, for example, if you walk into a coin shop with this and they see it's a poured silver piece, they may not even be interested in buying it, or they may pay you less than pure silver because they're worried that it may not be quite as pure as they say it is when they mark the coin. So this one right here is one I poured. I know for a fact that it's at least 999, and that's because I melted silver rounds and silver maples. And don't get me wrong, the silver maples were very beat up and milky, but I melted pure silver to pour this. But how do they know if it's actually 999 or less than 999 pure? It could be, 98% pure. There's really no way of knowing without having it assayed. Even an XRF gun is not going to penetrate the entire coin. And so for that reason, poured silver is actually really scary to buy for coin shops, and they generally either avoid it or pay you less when they do. So for that reason, poured silver is really cool to collect, especially if you like the person that poured it, but definitely not something I would recommend that you stack. So there you have it. 3 types of silver I would absolutely focus on if I were a brand new stacker, and 4 types I would absolutely avoid as a new stacker. Now, I'm sure there are people out there that have different opinions, so if you have something that you would avoid that maybe I said I would get, or vice versa, something that you would get that I said you should avoid, let me know with a comment down below and tell me what it is. Or maybe there's something I didn't mention at all. I would love to hear it. So leave your comment. Do me a favor before you go. Don't forget to subscribe and help us continue to grow. And we'll see you in the very next video. Have a great rest of your day.